Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of World Traveler Cooking. Now, I'm sure by now all of you have heard of the Italian bruschetta. This is of course usually a starter dish that is served in Italian cuisine with bread, tomatoes, and other things on top. But did you know that Germans have a similar dish they call the Tomatensandwich? Now, like the bruschetta, this is a starter, so it's not intended to be an entire meal. It is typically served before other food, and it's simple. So, think about it again as a sort of a light appetizer, similar to bruschetta. Now, very much like bruschetta, you have a mixture of bread, an oil, tomatoes, and maybe some other ingredients. For the German version, we have butter, bread, and normally you'd use a German Farmhouse bread. I don't have any of that, and I can't get it easily, so I'll have to teach myself how to make it at some point. So what I'm using for now is this Lithuanian sourdough rye, and I believe it'll work relatively well. The German Farmhouse breads are typically mixed wheat-rye breads. For American audiences, Germans do not typically put caraway in their rye bread. That's pretty much purely an American and maybe a Canadian thing. So using a whole fully rye bread here will probably work. Should work quite well. And then it's important to use, what are called in German Fleischtomaten, or meat tomatoes. These are, in the US you'd call them sandwich tomatoes. They're typically round. They're going to be thick. They're going to be meaty in their texture, and so forth. Now, one difficulty here in the tropics is that tomatoes only ripen in a relatively narrow temperature band, and so getting properly ripened tomatoes here is actually really difficult. This is the best I could find, but these are the right kinds of tomatoes. These are just small. Normally, like the German Fleischtomaten will be significantly bigger, and consequently your bread will need to be bigger. And then we will top it with some onion. You can either very thinly slice the onion or finely chop it. You can also use shallots if you really want. I do that sometimes, but it's more traditionally German to use the onion. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread a little bit of the butter onto the bread, and then we'll slice the tomato, we'll construct our sandwich, we'll plate it, and then we will present it and taste it. This will be a relatively quick, short video, but this is an interesting appetizer, so it's worth knowing about. Let's get started. So, to assemble this, we have a nice even layer of butter for the most part, and I'm going to add 2 slices of tomatoes like this, and then I'm just going to sprinkle some onions on top. And here we have our tomaten sandwich. Next up, the taste test. And now for the taste test. I'm just going to pick this up. Normally I think people would eat this with a knife and fork, but especially with this particular bread, I think it'll be easier to just pick up. This is delightful. This is absolutely delightful. The flavors of the onions, the butter, the tomatoes, especially the tomatoes. The tomatoes are the centerpiece of this. But they're supported by the onions, the bread, the butter. It's all really, really, really delightful. This is delicious. Now, if you find this content interesting, I hope I've earned a like and a subscription from you. Please also comment and share. It's free to do. It helps this channel. And if you'd like to support my work, please check out my Patreon page. The link will be in the description. If you make a dish like this and you do it differently than I do, I'd love to hear how. Please describe what you like to do differently. makes this video more valuable to everybody who is reading it, or reading the comments and watching the video. At any rate, recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.